I want to bring in now the senator from Delaware, Chris Coons. Senator Coons, you are a very close ally to President Biden. You are one of his very, very close friends on Capitol Hill. What is your reaction to the president making this decision, and have you spoken to the president since he announced that he will be stepping aside in this race?
Rachel, it's great to be on with you, and thank you for the chance to speak to that. Yes, the president and I spoke, and I am so grateful for his decades of leadership for our nation. I hope today that folks will take a moment and just reflect on the fact that for 50 years, Joe Biden has served the people of the United States as senator, as vice president, as president, and that he made a very difficult decision to step aside in being the nominee for our party for president in order that we could be more certain that we'll defeat Donald Trump this fall, and in order that he can keep doing the hard work that President Biden's doing for us every day. This coming week, he'll be rolling up his sleeves and diving into finishing the work of negotiating the ceasefire and hostage release deal in Gaza between Israel and Hamas that he took to the UN Security Council, that he got the G7 to endorse. Looking back on these last 3 weeks, he has continued to be the strong and capable leader that he's been as president. When we had 31 heads of state from every NATO ally in Washington last week, he was engaged, he was leading, he was forceful, and he was also balancing that with campaigning all over the country. This was a very hard choice, but as has always been the case with our Joe Biden, he made a choice that was in the best interest of the American people. I'm more proud of him today than I ever have, but I am proud of what he has gotten done, what President Biden and Vice President Harris have gotten done these last 3 years.
Senator Coons, you are a very close confidant to President Biden. For the American people that are watching this all play out right now, this sudden announcement from the President of the United States to withdraw from this race, to drop out with just over 100 days to go until the election, they may be remembering what the president himself said just a matter of weeks ago, that he was determined to stay in this race, that only the Lord God Almighty would convince him to drop out of it. He even cast doubt that leaders on Capitol Hill would come to him and ask him to drop out of this race. So to the American people that are watching these developments unfold and they're wondering what exactly happened, what changed in the president's mind in order to make this decision?
Rachel, I think we should leave this to the president, who's going to speak to our nation later this week, and to history. Because what matters most is not exactly how he got to this decision, but that he made a decision in the best interest of the nation, and that over the last 3.5 years, he has signed into law the most important and consequential legislation of all the time that I've been in public service. You remember, I'm sure, his inaugural address. He had inherited 3 crises: a global pandemic that took ultimately 1 million American lives, an economic crisis caused by the mishandling of that pandemic, and a democracy crisis, because just 2 weeks before his inaugural was the January 6th assault on the Capitol. He gave an optimistic, hopeful, positive speech that day about how if we come together as a nation, there's nothing that can stop the American people. And he gave a call to the American people to work together, to see each other not as political enemies, but as fellow Americans. And then he got to work. And I got to be there as he signed into law some of the most important legislation of my lifetime: investing in manufacturing, investing in rebuilding our roads and our highways, our bridges and tunnels, caring for our veterans, addressing gun violence, investing in community mental health, tackling the climate crisis, reducing prescription drug prices. Rachel, he has an incredible record and legacy. And this latest decision is just one more part of that legacy of putting the American people first.
Another chapter in his legacy, and especially in the Senate, where he served 36 years. You said that you had spoken to the president after he made this decision. Can you give us a sense of how he was feeling after he announced this to the American people?
Well, I was fairly emotional, so I don't remember much more than my telling him that I'm proud of him. I love him. I intend to keep fighting for him and his legacy, and I look forward to finishing the work that's ahead, and to then working really hard to make sure that we elect the best possible candidate this fall for the American people, who I believe to be Vice President Harris. He did thank me for my loyalty, and I thanked him for his leadership. But at the end of the day, what matters is not that exchange, but that he also said, as he said in his letter to the American people released today, that he's more optimistic than he's ever been, that he thinks if we come together, there's nothing to stop America and the American people. And as someone who's been knocked down harder by life more times than anyone I know, I respect that he's always had a fighting spirit, that he's always wanted to go the next round and to do the next thing to help average Americans and to bring into the positive aspects of American life those who've been overlooked or counted out, who've been on the hard side of life. That's how he's always led, and that's how he'll continue to serve in the remainder of his time as president and as a leader of our party.
One final question to you, Senator Coons. As we now look ahead to the president endorsing Vice President Kamala Harris to be the next Democratic nominee, are you expecting this to be a messy process? Are you expecting that those will be out there to challenge her to get on the ticket?
I don't think that more division in our party is what we need. And I think President Biden has made his views known and clear. And he knows better than anyone. He has spent 3.5 years working side by side with Vice President Harris day in and day out. And I deeply respect his choice. I served with the Vice President in the Senate. I've worked with her as Vice President. I deeply respect and support the President's choice. And it's my hope that our party will quickly come together.
Senator Chris Coons, we so appreciate your time. You spoke with the president after he made this decision. You are a very close confidant to President Biden. Thank you for joining us with your reaction, and look forward to seeing you back on Capitol Hill on Monday. Thank you, sir.